Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we will be looking at post-installation configuration of our Windows Server 2022. So let's begin. So the first thing I'm going to do is to log into my Windows Server 2022. So I'll just double click within the window here to get the mouse activated within the virtual environment, and I'll press Ctrl Alt Insert to activate the login screen. So I'm just going to put in my administrator password and then I'll press enter, or I can just click the arrow right here to submit. So I'll just click that arrow and it's going to log in. So I'll just give it a few seconds and allow things to load up. When we first log into our Windows Server 2022, the first thing we'll notice is that the Server Manager dashboard automatically opens up. So this is something that will always open up. So if you don't want it to open up, you can just activate this place, don't show this message again, and you close it, which means that whenever you log in, it will not show up. So I'm just going to deactivate it and just close it. So now you have the Server Manager panel. Within the Server Manager window, you can use the Server Manager window to perform a lot of day-to-day administrative tasks on your Windows Server 2022. Looking at the Windows Server 2022 Server Manager dashboard, on the left side, the first option that is active is Dashboard. So this shows you the dashboard in the middle of the screen. So at the middle, you have Welcome to Server Manager, and then here you have options that you can configure your local server, or you could add a role and features and add other things and perform other services on your local server. At the bottom here, it gives you information about the server. So it tells you you have file and storage services running. Currently, you have some service message on your local server, which you can click on. It will open and tell you what the message is all about. So there's a service that has stopped, and you can either automatically restart it or you can just ignore it. So for now, we're just having a look at it, so we'll just ignore this for now and click on cancel. This area tells you about all server. With this Server Manager interface, you can not only manage your local server, but you can manage other remote servers that are on your network. Speaking of local server, the local server simply means the server that we are currently logged on. To view more information about this server that we are currently logged into, we will click on local server. When you click on local server, it brings the properties of this local server in the middle of the screen. So it tells you the random name that Windows installation automatically assigned to this server. It tells you information that the server is part of a work group and gives you other information about the time zone. It tells you about the IP information and all of those other information. So you see that on the properties. When you come in the middle after properties, you have events. So this place just gives you messages about things that are happening within the server. And then when you scroll down, you have services. So it tells you about other services that are either running on the server or have stopped on the server. And then you have best practices analyzer. So it tells you about best practices that you can use and gives you performance information about the server, and then it also tells you roles and features that are currently active on the server. So this is for your local server. Then after local server, you have all servers. So when you click on all servers, because right now the only server we have on our local network is the Windows Server 2022 that we installed. So this is the information of that server here. If we install additional server operating system on our network, we can have all of those servers listed here, and then we can manage all of them just from this one interface. So for now, we only have one server, so we only have one server information here. And then the next thing is to click on file and storage. So basically this tells you about the hard drive information of the server, and if it is connected to a storage, the storage disks will all appear within this place. So you can go to the volume and see the different volumes that we have. Currently we have drive C that we created, and then we have disks. It will tell you all the information about this, and if we create a storage pool, we can come and view those information right here. For now, we are not going to go into the storage pool. For now, this is just an overview of some of the things that we have access to within this user interface of Server Manager. So I will come back to the dashboard, and let's say I close this window. So if this window is closed, you can simply go back to the server manager by clicking on Start, and then you'll see Server Manager in the menu, and you can just click on Server Manager, and it's just going to load up the server manager. So that's how you will access the server manager if it is already closed. At the top right side of the server manager, we have this place to refresh your dashboard with these two arrows, like the recircle arrow. Then we also have the notification flag. So if you click on this, it will show you other notification information. For now, we don't have any notification, so that list is empty. Then the next thing is to manage your server. So if you click on manage, it shows you other things that you can do. You can manage the server, you can add other servers, you can add roles and feature to the server, or you could remove roles and feature from your local server. The next from manage is tools. So on tools, we have all the various tools. So as we install services on this server, those services will easily be accessed from the tools. They will all form part of the tools. So later on in the next video, when we install Active Directory domain services on the server, and then we configure it as a domain controller, we will be able to access all of those functionalities within tools. Then after tools, you have view. This simply has to do with how you want the screen to be. So right now we have it at 100%. So if you want it to be a little bigger, you could carry it to 125 or 150, or you could just change it to the size you want with zoom in and zoom out. So that's completely up to you. And then if you need help, you can always click on help and access those things. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to click on right on the taskbar. I'm going to click on the File Explorer right here. So when I click on File Explorer, it's going to open this up, the File Explorer. So I'm just going to maximize that screen, and I will just click on this PC. When I click on this PC, what you notice here is that you have drive C and you have drive D. So drive C is my local hard drive, and drive D is the virtual DVD ROM that has the ISO image of server 2022. If you remember during the installation, we did partition the hard drive, and then we used one of the partition, which at the time was partition 3, if you can remember, and we install Windows on it. So right now we don't see the other partition. I will show you how you could go to that partition in a minute, but I just wanted to point that out. To access that partition, we just need to go to the disk manager. So we can click on start, and then we'll come to Windows Administrative Tools. So I will expand this, and then I will come down to Computer Management, and I will click on Computer Management. So when I click on Computer Management, the Computer Management window will open. Within the Computer Management window, on your left, you have Disk Management. So I want to click on Disk Management. When we click on Disk Management, notice in the middle of the screen, we have our drive C, which is where our operating system was installed. Then partition 1 and partition 4. These are the two partitions that were automatically created by the Windows installation. So these partition host information related to the performance of Windows. So we don't want to bother with those partitions. Then the next one we have here is the DVD drive. So I will just expand this. So this is the DVD drive, drive D. And then this is our unallocated hard drive. Because the partition is unallocated, we are unable to see it in our file manager. What you would notice is that the size of my hard drive has changed from the previous one. The reason being, for some unknown reason, my Windows Server 2022 crashed, so I had to reinstall it. So when I reinstalled it, I did increase the hard drive. That's why you have one partition is at 125 gig, because I just chose 250 gig. In the previous installation that I did, one partition was around 63 gigabyte. So I just increased it. I just wanted to let you know about that in case you are wondering how is it that my hard drive has a now bigger size. Anyways, so the next thing I want to do is to just right click on this unallocated partition and click on new simple volume. So I will click on that, and then I will click on next, and then it will tell me the size of it in megabyte. So I will just click on next. If you notice, you have drive C, and the next drive letter from C is D because it goes in alphabetical order. Currently, the virtual DVD is using the drive letter D. So the next available drive letter is E. So that will be automatically assigned to this new partition that we are creating. So I will just keep it to that, and then I will click on next. At this stage, I need to format that partition. I will keep the file system to NTFS, and then for the volume label, I can either leave it to new volume or I can give it a name. So I will give it a name. I will just name this volume data. So I know that whenever I see it, I know that, okay, that's my data partition. I'm going to keep it to perform a quick format just because I don't want it to take a long time to format this partition. And I'm going to go to next. And then this will just give me a summary of all of the configurations that I've selected. I will click on finish, and it's going to format that partition. And now it has formatted that partition. So if you notice, the drive letter is E and the volume name is data. So now when I go back to my file manager, I can see that partition is now available to be used. Now that that partition is available to be used, and so what you notice here, you have C, which is where your operating system is. You have D for the DVD, and you have E. I personally would not like to have it like this just because for my personal mental sanity, it doesn't look good. So I prefer having all the hard drive in order, and then the next available letter is given to the DVD. So since this is the case, the DVD has E, we can swap these letters between the DVD drive and this data partition. So all we do is to just go back to our computer management and on disk management. You can just come and just right click on the DVD drive and say change drive letter. So when you click it, and then while it's selected here as drive D, you just click on change, and then I will take the next available letter after E, which will be F. I will put the DVD to F, and I'll click OK, and then it's just going to give you a warning that things will not work properly. So I understand. I will just say yes, and then right now it's going to change your DVD to F. As you can see, it has changed to F. Then I will come to this data drive, right click on it, and just do the same. So I'm going to change the drive letter. So I'll click on change, and then I will click on D, because now D has been taken away from the DVD, so it's now available. So I'll click on OK, and it will tell me the same thing. I'll say yes, that's fine. And then now my data partition is using the letter D, and then I can come back to this DVD and just change it now to the next available letter, which will be E. And I'll click OK, and I'll click yes, and then now I have C, D, and E. And then when I come back to the File Explorer, you don't have to do this, but I just prefer having, all the hard drive in order, and then the next available one should be associated with the DVD, just to have that kind of consistency. So I know that C is my OS partition, and then D is my data partition, and then the next available letter, which is E, is associated with my DVD ROM. So you can do that. You don't have to do it. I prefer doing it. The next thing I want to do is just to close this. So what we are doing, they are all part of the post-installation. Those are things that we want to do. The next thing I'm going to do is to close my computer management. Another way we could go back to the disk management is to click within the search and then type the word disk, D-I-S-K, and then type MGMT. And it will show you create and format hard disk partition. So if you click on it, it will just bring you straight to the disk management. So that's another way to come to the disk management. Another way to go to the disk management is to use run. So I'll press the window logo and press arrow, which will open run. Or I could just type run within here and just click on run. I prefer using Windows logo and arrow. And I would just type disk, D-I-S-K, M-G-M-T for management.msc, and I'll press enter or I'll press OK, and then we'll open the disk management. So those are different ways that you can access the disk management. So it's completely up to you. For the most part, whenever I'm working, I prefer use Windows logo and arrow and then type the disk management in there and open it. I found that way to be faster, but you can use any way that you prefer. So I'm just going to close that, come back to the server manager and click on local server because I need to perform some changes to my local server. Right now with our Windows Server 2022, we would not want to use this auto-generated name. So the first thing you want to do is to change your server name. So usually if you work within an organization, your organization would definitely have a naming convention that you will want to use. So you have to check with your supervisor or with your manager, or check the documentation and just follow your naming convention. So to change the name of this computer is to just come to click on change and then you type in the name. So I'm just going to see how I name it yet, SVR 2022-DC. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to give it that name, SVR for server 2022, so that I know that it's Windows Server 2022, DC for domain controller, and this is going to be my first domain controller, so I'm just going to give it 01. So again, make sure you are following the naming convention of your company. Or if you are doing a home lab, just come up with your own naming convention and use it, or you could just use the same naming convention that I am using in this video. That's perfectly fine. For here, we are not ready to put it in a domain because we don't have a domain yet, so we'll just keep it on work group. We'll click on OK. So it will tell you that you need to restart your computer for the changes to take effect. So I'll click on OK, I will click on close, and I will say restart later. The reason being because I want to perform other changes on this server. So I just want to do all of the changes and then just restart at once instead of just restarting after every change. The next thing is the firewall by default is turned on, so I will just keep that to on. Remote management is turned on, so I will keep it to enable. So for remote desktop, I will change it from disable to enable. So I'll click on allow and I'll click on OK. I'll just click on apply and click on OK. The next thing is net theming. I'm just going to leave it disabled for now. In another video, we'll talk more about what that is. Then another thing we want to look at is our Ethernet, which is our local area network. For now, our Windows server is using an automatic IP address from the DHCP server. We don't want to use that on our server, especially devices on the network like a server or a router or access point or printer. Those devices that provide services or service on your network, you want to make sure that they are using a static IP address. So we want to change this because currently this server is using an IP address from a home router. So if I just open run and type ncpa.cpl and press enter, it's going to take me to the network area. I can just double click on this and it's going to open my Ethernet status information, and I will click on details, and as you can see, the server is currently assigned to use a DHCP. So it said DHCP enable is set to yes, and it's using a 192.168 IP address. This IP address is from my home router. So I will click close. So we can do that from here. We can change the IP address from here, or we could just change it from right here just by clicking on this, and we'll still bring us to the same place. Right click on this, click on properties, scroll down and come to Internet Protocol version 4. So I will click on this and click on properties. So I will change it from obtain an IP address automatically to use an IP address. So I'll click here. At this stage, you can just follow along and use the same IP. So I'll use 172.30.15.1. So I'll use that as my IP address. I'm going to configure 255.255.255.0 for my subnet mask. Currently, I don't have a router, so I'm going to leave the default gateway like this for now. And then this is going to be my first domain controller, which will also be my preferred DNS server. I'm just going to repeat the IP address here because I'm going to use this device as the DNS server as well. So I'm going to put .1. So I'll click OK and I'll click close. And now when I just double click this and click on details, you will notice that DHCP is set to no, and it shows the static IP address that I defined on the server. So I'll click close, I'll click close, I'll close this. Then after changing the IP address, the next thing I want to do is to change my time zone. So it's good to change your time zone because you will have events that are being generated within your event logs, and these events will have date and time. So you want to make sure that you have the appropriate date and time set up and it's set up right so that you can be able to track this information that are logged in the event log, and just be sure that you are not having a wrong date and time. I'm in the Eastern Standard, so I'm just going to change this from the Pacific time. So I will just change the time zone to Eastern Standard. So I'm looking for Eastern time, US, Canada. So I'm going to pick that and then click on OK, and then click on OK. So once I do that, the time automatically update. And for now, I will just keep the other settings like that. And the next thing I could do, usually it's good to run update. So you can click on this and just run update on your server. In a work environment, it's good to make sure that your server is up to date. So that will be something that you want to do as part of the post-installation configuration. You want to run some updates. For us, we don't necessarily have to do this because this is a lab environment. But if this was a production environment, you want to make sure your server is up to date, especially after installing it. Then subsequent update, because sometimes some update will require you to restart the server. That's not something you want to do if the server is providing services for users. So maybe you want to schedule your restart at the end of workday when there's no one in the office or no one using the services, and then you can restart your server. So those will be things that you would discuss with your team in a work environment, and you will have a time for restarting server and even performing updates and all of those things. This is where you can do it. So it's either you can access the update from here, or you could just click here and just type Windows Update, and you just click on this, and it's still going to bring you back to this place for you to search for update. So I will just click on S to close it, and I'm going to restart the server for all the changes to take effect. So I'll close this, and then I'll click on Start. I'll click on Power, and then I'll say Restart. And then it's going to bring this message asking you, why do you want to restart? So it's good to click this and choose an option here why you want to restart. The reason being that for auditing purposes, every time you restart the server, it will be documented, and the option you choose here will be documented. So that's good for your audit, so that when you look at it, you can know that on so-and-so date at so-and-so time, you restarted the server for XYZ reason. So it's good to make sure to pick an option here that will kind of explain or remind you of why the computer will restart it. So for us, we can take operating system reconfiguration because we performed some reconfiguration and we had a plan to restart it. So we'll just click on reconfigure plan and click on continue. So I'm just going to give it a few seconds and allow the server to restart. After restarting the server, I'm just going to press Ctrl Alt and insert, and I'll type in my password to log in to just make sure that all the changes took effect. So we're going to let the server manager wizard to open up, and we can just click this to close it, and we'll click back on local server to see our server properties. So as you can see, the computer name has changed to the name we put on it, and we have remote desktop enabled. We have our static IP address, and then we have our time zone all set up nicely as we did it. And also we did set up our hard drive. So when we come to this computer, we see our hard drive is here. So those will be basic things that we want to do on our server after setting it up. So after performing these post-installation configuration, the next thing we want to do at some point is to join computer to the domain. So in order to join computer to the domain, we need to have a domain controller. We need to have a DNS server. So all of those things are really important to have in place before we can go ahead to join computers to the domain. So how do we configure Active Directory domain services? How do we create a domain controller? How do we join computers to the domain controller? Those will be things that we will look at in the next episode. If you like this video, you can click the like. If you have any questions that you would like to ask about things that we discussed in today's episode, make sure to leave those in the comment section below. If you know of anyone that will find this video useful, please make sure to share this video with them, because that's how you can support this channel. But without any further thing to do, we will end this video here, and then I will see you in the very next video. Take care. Bye.